When valuable prisoner Loon Divinian disappears from his cell on Yavin 4, Luke is determined to find him. As the sole link to X7, the assassin sent to kill Luke, Div is the only hope to staying a step ahead of the Empire. Across the galaxy, X7 has escaped from Imperial custody. Caught between the past and the present, X7 must fight the only battle for which he's not prepared, the battle with his identity. But his desperate confusion makes him more dangerous than ever. A chance encounter and a figure from the past bring X7, Luke, and Div together for a final showdown that will reveal everything, or destroy them all.
Hello, younglings, and welcome back to the Padawan Library, the Galaxy's junior Star Wars podcast novel. I am Levi Paratic, and with me, as always, Timothy May.
Hello, Levi.
And this week, we are reading Star Wars Rebel Force number 5, Trapped, by Alex Wheeler. And along with that, we will be reviewing the 2001 made-for-television movie, Trapped, which stars the late Meat Loaf, which is the reason why we divulged from what we had planned on last week.
Yeah, last week we had a very vague plan about game shows.
It was going to be fun. It was probably more fun than what we landed on, but...
And you know what? I predicted that, and I didn't watch the movie.
Oh, you son of a bitch!
Okay, all right. I didn't do it intentionally, actually, because this morning I was reading the book, and then I was like, "Oh yeah, he sent me the link to that movie," and and we'll talk about the movie. You'll talk about the movie, I should say.
Yeah.
And I didn't have enough time before class to watch the movie, and we had already arranged a time to record, and I was just like, you know what, like I'm not pushing this back to watch this movie, because we were recording basically when I got home from class, so I was just like, I think I get the gist. I just I looked at it, but I want to hear from you about it. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about Meat Loaf. Because this is very fun. I realized this morning when I was thinking about Meat Loaf. And, R.I.P., of course. R.I.P. to Jim Steinman, who died a couple of years ago.
Do it on the iPad.
Yeah. And so I was thinking about all the music-specific topics we've done are like the biggest cheeseball rock shit. And I like all this stuff. I'm not taking shots, but it's like I think people might have a distorted sense of our general musical taste.
Yeah,
because we've literally talked about The Darkness's second album.
It's not the first album.
Not even the first, the second, and Styx, and now Meat Loaf. You know what I mean? I think it's pretty funny, but you had texted me. You broke the news to me that Meat, the great Meat, has died. And I was just thinking about it. It's crazy that Jim Steinman died like a year ago, and like so close together. It's like an old married couple. Like one of them can't live without the other. You know what I mean? Like, like it's just it's crazy. it's like I imagine that whenever, I don't know whether Paul or Ringo will die first. I don't even want to think about it.
I don't want to think about that either.
But whoever does first, I honestly think the other one will follow very shortly. I don't know why. That's just my sense. Not that I don't think they're like, I mean, they're friendly, obviously, but I don't think, Joe Walsh and Ringo are the real friends. Like
they're the real best friends. Yeah, I agree.
But like, it's like almost like, yeah, I don't know. Ringo's the oldest Beatle, so you'd think he'd be first, but I don't know. I feel like he has that kind of like he's going to be the last one guy vibe, doesn't he? Have that vibe?
He does have that vibe.
It's a weird thing to talk about. I want them both to live another couple decades, but you know what I mean. But it's like, yeah, no, it's crazy. Anyway,
the crazy thing is that both of them will be consistently still putting out music till the day they die. I assume
and Paul will like hit some stuff here or there, and Ringo will never produce a song that's actually good for the rest of his life.
No,
I mean, he'll produce plenty of material that's fun to listen to.
It will sure be goofy, and Joe will be there, and maybe Paul. I
love that Joe Walsh is his musical like soulmate now.
I love that they're brother-in-laws too.
Like, oh yeah, of course. That's why. I mean, obviously, that's why they like are. It's like it was just funny, like when Ringo did his big 80th birthday thing, like in. And it's just like clearly like these guys are like next door neighbors and like hang out all the time. It's just very, very funny. Yeah.
Well, it was so funny because it starts off as Ringo and his 80th celebration party, and then Joe comes in like he's his Ed McMahon and like being like his co-host and laughing at all his
that
jokes.
Thing is incredible. That thing.
I agree. There's this one part that Mel and I quote all the time, and they cut to Ringo, and he's at his drum set, and he goes do 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 do. Like he hits the cymbal and he goes, "That's what I do."
So good. I think we've literally talked about this before. It's a good thing the show is winding down. I as far as Meat Loaf goes, I had a brief after Jim Steinman died. I had a brief kind of. I'm going to reinvestigate the Meat Loaf catalog, I haven't listened to this stuff mostly since I was like probably 10, really. Like that's the peak of my interest in Meat Loaf.
That's about the time I got a copy of Bat Out of Hell as well. So
Bat Out of Hell is like great, like it's like the corny version of Born to Run. Like it's like very fun, I know some people think that Born to Run's corny, and those people can go screw Bruce is my god. But you know what I mean. Like it like clearly like that's the idea is like let's go for this kind of let's take this kind of like that kind of what. Now I guess it's called like Heartland rock. I don't love that term, but like, and like put it through a musical theater prism, and like those are two things that I love that people have weird resentments about that are based on seemingly no actual aesthetic qualities. They're just like they didn't like somebody in high school, so they're you know what I mean. It's like that kind of thing, and it's like those two things combined. And it's just it's a potent thing. And that first Bat Out of Hell record is really good.
Really good.
And then they broke up basically for the next 15 years. And Meat's just putting out anonymous pap, and Jim Steinman's off here writing Total Eclipse of the Heart, just killing it. And then they reunite for Bat Out of Hell 2, which is unlistenable.
Okay.
In my opinion, I think that is terrible. That goes like too far.
It's heavily debated in my house because I really like Bat Out of Hell 1. I think it's a superior album, but clearly. Mel is all over Bat Out of Hell 2. And
I disagree with Mel.
However, there are two songs that I think are really good on that one, but objects in the rearview mirror might appear closer than they are. Okay, but it's also kind of corny, but it also kind of riffs on some Bat Out of Hell 1 stuff. But I also love Life is a Lemon, and I want my money back. That is so funny, because especially the part where it's like, what about your friends? They're defective. They're rotten and decayed. What about your family? They're defective. It's like the most pessimistic song ever. It's incredible.
No, it's crazy. And then, I mean, the worst thing is that he made that Bat Out of Hell 3 that's not even all Jim Steinman.
I know, which I never even listened to. It was so much later. It was turn of the century. He put that out, right?
That wasn't that. It was less time between that and 2 than 2 and 1, I think. Mm-hmm. Because 2 comes out, 93? Something like that. Maybe 92, but it's definitely early 90s. So it's definitely like 15 years after the first one.
There's definitely this one track on Bat Out of Hell 2 that is so goofy, and it's like about this kid who like can't like get in, like his parents don't like rock and roll, so he's gonna like murder his parents.
We talked about this on the Styx episode, but like every fucking like concept album in rock history is something about how like there's like an oppressive society, like future society that has banned rock and roll or whatever. Literally, like that's Tommy and Quadrophenia, and like, are those the same continuity? Are those both canon? Or is that like is Tommy Legends and Quadrophenia's canon? I don't know.
Okay, Bat Out of Hell 3 was released in 2006. Bat Out of Hell 2 was 93, so there's a 13-year difference.
So a shorter difference than between the first
1 and 2, yeah.
Because 1 is 77, right?
And then Bat Out of Hell 2 is, Bat Out of Hell 2, Back into Hell. And then Bat Out of Hell 3, The Monster is Loose.
Yeah, I know. Very silly. I mean, transitioning into the film you watched, that I abdicated that responsibility.
Because Meat was also
he was an actor.
He did quite a bit of acting. Yeah, Rocky Horror is probably his most famous role.
That and
Fight Club.
Yeah, which he's great in Fight Club. Yeah. That's a very memorable scene. But and he was good in that movie. He didn't really do that much post-Fight Club, which is a little surprising because that's like a big scene-stealing role. Right?
Yeah, exactly. That's a huge role for him. Very memorable character. David Fincher using him very effectively. Paulson, but he does not he was consistently working after that. But
he's not in any like major things.
No, he didn't like make his way back to that level of like prestige. Like role. Yeah. Let's go on his IMDb. Let's see here.
Because this TV movie Trapped is 2 years after Fight Club, 2001.
Yeah, I know, and it's like he's probably the best performance in the movie, but that's not saying anything at all because like everybody else is terrible. He actually is like the only one who gives like any sort of a performance in terms of
what network did this TV movie air on?
USA, okay. and it's produced by Universal. It has the Universal logo
USA
in front of it.
Is a subsidiary of Universal.
Okay, so following never mind. That's Fight Club, the video game. From 2004 that he. I
forgot that they did that.
Yeah, he did a lot of TV movies. But like nothing ever gets to that level again.
I can't even. He didn't even get a role in like one of those live musicals the last 10 years or so. You'd think he would have gotten into one of those.
Yeah, you think so? Because I know they did a Rocky Horror one too. So like he could have played like a different role than the role he did play. But they did
Hairspray. He could have played Divine's role.
He could have. He would have been really good at that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Meat had some questionable attitudes towards the pandemic, which
not
appears to
surprised.
be his demise.
That's
Unfortunately,
I actually didn't look into it. That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Whatever. I don't want to get into.
We don't need to remember the man for that.
Uh,
If you are not familiar with Meat Loaf, then my suggestion to you would be go listen to Bat Out of Hell, and then listen to the song "I Would Do Anything for Love," and that's probably all you need to listen to, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Bat Out of Hell is the essential thing. I mean, obviously, you've probably heard the singles. I mean, he's never been among my guys or anything. I think he's more your guy than my guy.
I wouldn't even consider him one of my guys either.
That's not me implying anything regarding the other thing you just said. I'm not trying to put that on you. I just it's interesting because the Styx episode unveiled some of these feelings as well for me, and I was thinking about it as and I think I talked about it a little bit on that, but that kind of late 70s period of super major label rock music that sat side by side with peak late 60s the true peak classic rock moment of late 60s early 70s sat side by side on the radio with that stuff, and it's Styx and REO Speedwagon, and Meat Loaf is its own thing musically, but it's kind of in that same period, and it's this stuff does feel it's that post kind of 60s counterculture infused rock music, that ends somewhere in the early 70s, really. It's after that, and it's what was rock music while all the really interesting stuff going on in popular music was disco and funk and punk, which is a little underground still at that point. But but it's pre MTV when all that stuff starts to synthesize. And you know what I mean? It starts to come together, and that begins the true next era of popular music, where you finally move past the 60s. But it's this just feels like the fumes, you know what I'm saying? And then there's anomalies like Springsteen or whatever, where he kind of is the guy that comes right after those 60s guys that's really kind of just of a piece with them, you know what I mean? But it's there's it's music's fun to talk about. I like it.
Meat Loaf too is he's sort of a precursor to metal too, which I think is
he postdates Sabbath, which is the real beginning of metal, and at the same time as Bat Out of Hell, you have the British stuff going on, starting Judas Priest and Iron Maiden and stuff, and then he definitely has that affect. The music is much closer to, fucking Andrew Lloyd Webber and Andrew Lloyd Webber and Bruce Springsteen fucking that is, and it's just such a weird I was gonna say two great tastes, but Andrew Lloyd Webber set aside Jesus Christ Superstar. Not sure that's a great taste, but you know what I'm saying? It's the only one of his shows I like, really. But there's it's a very weird and I joke I enjoy I like Bat Out of Hell. It's just he went fully into the schlock territory after that. Not that Bat Out of Hell isn't schlock, but it's after that, in the 80s Meat Loaf stuff. I mean, he's just first of all, he has no real hits from that period, but if you go and listen to some of that stuff, it's just very anonymous balladeer kind of material. And he needed Jim. They were soulmates. Mm-hmm. Although Jim, I guess, didn't fully need him. He had hits outside of Meat Loaf. But yeah, no, I mean, that's unfortunate. R.I.P.
R.I.P.
Hopefully, people in his life that maybe shared his views got a good wake-up call. Anyway,
I'll talk real briefly about Trapped, the 2001 television movie.
I'm sorry.
As I said, aired on USA. It has never been officially released on VHS or DVD in the United States.
Went straight to 4K UHD.
Hang on, let me look up the director. This director was known for, I feel like, direct-to-video stuff. His name is Darren Serafine. This was the last movie he made. I don't know if he's alive or dead, actually. I don't think he's dead. I didn't find anything that said he's gone. But some of it, let's see the other movies he's directed. Oh, well, he's still active in television, actually. So he hasn't done a movie since Trapped. But let's see here. Oh, I forgot this. Darren directed an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Cool.
Killed by Death. I don't remember what that episode is.
What season is it?
Season 2, episode 18. Well,
yeah. That's a really good episode.
Yeah, hospital episode, and he did an episode of Lost too.
Wow.
It was the title of that episode is question mark.
That's in season 2.
I think so. I'm trying to pull it up. Oh wait,
I know the title because the DVDs would I'd wake up and the menu was still on, and I think that might be even earlier. That might be season 1 still.
Let's see here. Lost.
Anyway,
Anyway, this movie Trapped is basically a ripoff of Towering Inferno. It takes place in Las Vegas. There's a brand new casino just opened, and somebody sets off a bomb on the 30th floor, and it goes up in flames. And everybody who's above the 30th floor is trapped, along with the owner and his daughter and this ensemble cast of unknowns who all have their own little story going. They are all white and they all look the same. So the quality at the end of the movie, they actually reveal that one of them is the arsonist who sets the building ablaze. But because the quality of the movie is not great, and there are so many just 40-year-old slim white men in this movie, I actually could not identify who the arsonist was at the end of the movie. And then Meat Loaf, he is the engineer of this casino, and we meet him 15 minutes into the movie, and he is fixing the ride that's built into this casino. The ride is, you get in this capsule and these doors open and the capsule goes out the doors and then drops to the first floor. So it's on rails and stuff. And he's like, I gotta get the brakes fixed. So immediately, this movie opens and you already know how they're going to escape the hotel. It's the ride, obviously. And then you also have this news reporter who's recording the whole thing, and they're broadcasting it on live TV. So they have all this footage of people at bars who are watching these people bicker amongst themselves and trying to survive. And then some of them die. Meat Loaf dies. Meat Loaf very unceremoniously dies. He's pushing the cart out with all the people inside. He's already going to sacrifice himself. He's pushing the cart out, and as he's pushing it, the floor falls out underneath him, and he just goes, ah! And then he's gone. But there's also a housekeeper, a very young and attractive housekeeper who Meat Loaf is friends with, but you can tell he wants it to be more. And then, of course, when Meat Loaf dies, she's like, no! She's crying. But the movie was terrible. I gave it 1 star. It's not very good.
I'm sorry I didn't watch it.
It's okay. But we had a nice Meat Loaf conversation out of it. So
yeah. Well, before we get to the break, I wanted to also give an update to something.
I have something else too I want to talk about. So you go first.
We got time. Who cares? I want to give an update to something I talked about last week. I talked about the film The King's Daughter that came out last week.
Oh, I want to hear about this.
I went to see it. It was me, my brother, and friend of the /foe of the show, Sam McCauley, who I will be seeing ABBA Mania with in a week. I can't wait.
Hang on, I don't think we were calling him foe of the show last week, and your brother is the foe of the show, not Samuel, not Lando.
Okay, well, 2 foes of the show.
Okay, all right. I just want to clear it up.
All right. Well, I went to see it with them, and we thought we were going to be alone, but then a row of people came in and sat right behind us. They were the only other people in the theater. And they were, I don't know, middle-aged. They did not seem like they were there for the same reason that we were.
Right.
So it was like, okay, whatever, fine. We watch it. This movie, we'll get to the movie. Actually, I won't. It's just not very good. The effects are very bad, very unfinished. It looks like shit. The plotting is absolutely goofy, like truly wild. They shot this movie at Versailles, which is deranged.
So it shouldn't look so bad, right?
It's like so poorly directed. Like the guy that's making the Reagan biopic, watch out. What a surprise they couldn't get the best director to make a Reagan movie. What a surprise that a guy that wants to make a hagiography about Ronald Reagan is not like a good artist. I'm shocked. But, so there's like, but it's like so poorly directed. Like there are things like that in the script are clearly like functional scenes, where I'm like, I can see how this would play if in a movie that was directed by a competent filmmaker, but like just there's weird cutting. The blocking is so awkward. Like it was shocking to see it in a theater. I was like, why did they put it must have been some weird contractual thing. Because like why they waited 7 years to dump this thing in theaters when they could have just put it out in red boxes everywhere like 5 years ago is shocking to me. But regardless, Pierce is kind of fun in it. He's given a wild performance, And I will say William Hurt is in it, which I didn't realize. And he plays like a cardinal, and you think he's nefarious at first, but he's actually like not that bad. And like he gives like at first you're like, this is some Sleepy Time late period William Hurt bullshit. Like you're like, oh my god, this guy just doesn't give a fuck anymore. But I have to say it kind of like he turned me around a little bit. The movie's terrible, but like, and the effects are terrible, and there's like weird needle drops. Like they paid for like some fucking Adele song. Like I was like, why did you spend that money for this? Like that is crazy. Like there's an Adele song from I think from her like first or second album, like that's just in the end credits of this movie, and I'm just like, why? Like, it just feels so. It's such a weird mixture of like clearly lots of money spent, but pure incompetence. It's so strange. Anyway, at the end, we sit through the credits as we always do. Not to wait for a scene, just, I out of respect, especially out of respect to all these many people that worked on this movie fucking 7 years ago, and now it's finally up. And the people behind us also waited through the credits, which was weird, because they seemed like pretty casual moviegoers. And right as the last credit rolled, the woman behind us said, "That was delightful. I'd see it again right now." And me, Dan, and Sam had to run out of the theater so we weren't laughing. Like, ran. We just bolted out of the theater. It was so funny. I was dying. Truly crazy stuff.
Delightful. I had a similar experience when I went and saw the 355.
Still need to see it.
There was, if you're going to see every wide release movie.
I got to see that and Redeeming Love, good Lord. So, those are both. Thankfully, there's no new releases this weekend, so I have a week to catch up.
January has been such a horrible month for releases.
And then next week is Jackass 4 and Moonfall.
Yes. It is. It sure
is. I'm looking forward to Jackass.
And I don't know if it's that weekend or the weekend after, but Death on the Nile also comes out too, which Mel refuses to go see Death on the Nile. I want to see Death on the Nile because I saw Murder on the Orient Express, but But anyway, I was at the 355, and there was one other person in the theater with us, and we do the same. We wait till the end of the credits, and so does this person. And the credits finally roll, and the lights come up, and this other person who's a few rows in front of us, they stand up and they look at us and they go, "Can you believe it? No, nothing at the end of the credits. What the heck?" Like, they were like annoyed. They were annoyed that there was no post-credit scene. So the movie could.
Looking at the box office, I don't think that movie's like launching a franchise.
No. I mean, it's open for a sequel, but it's definitely not launching a franchise anytime soon. Jessica is quite good in it, and I will say though, Diane Kruger though, she is the real star in that movie.
Love her.
She was very good. So anyway, I have a bit of something that just came in today in the mail. So I don't know if I've told you, but I'm considering. I'm planning on going to the Turner Classic Movies Film Festival in Los Angeles in April. All right. So I was looking at the prices for this, and the baseline pass for it is $470. Okay. And
that's like the whole weekend or something?
Okay. So they play movies at the Chinese theater, and attached to the Chinese theater is 6 other screens. Okay, so this pass only includes the Chinese theater, not the megaplex that's playing movies all day along with it. Okay, so you don't get all the movies for $400, and you don't get access to Club TCM, which is like the convention that goes on that you get to go meet all the hosts, and I can go heckle Eddie Muller. So
so mean about Eddie.
Eddie he is a step below everybody else on
that. But he's a noir expert. He's a noir expert.
Sure. Okay. They can find someone better than him. But anyway, so
rank the fucking TCM hosts right now, the living ones. Obviously the Robert Osborne Memorial, but
okay. There's a few ones that I don't see often. So the big 4 are, of course, Eddie, Dave Karger, Alicia Malone, and Ben. Yeah. If I have to rank the 3 that I like, I'm going to go probably Ben, Alicia, and Dave. And that's no shots at Dave. I really like Dave.
Yeah, that's the correct order.
Yeah, it is.
You're right. I absolutely agree. There's not much else to say. Like that. And I don't hate Eddie like you do, but I also think he only really does special programming, so he's not like.
That's actually yesterday I watched Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, and there's on the app, and he did it, and I was like, nope, skipping this intro because he's going to spoil the damn movie because he talks too long. He's always talking too long. But anyway, so the first pass is $400. The next pass, which it grants you to all the screenings and Club TCM, is $750 per person.
Crazy.
And I'm like, there's no way I'm paying this. But then I see they have standby lines. So at each screening, they let all the people in with passes, and then if there's room, you can purchase a ticket like you're going to a regular movie. Those tickets, though, are $20 a piece. However, they are half price with a student ID. So I got the idea. I don't have my Edinburgh ID anymore.
Are they going to count student ID from Pennsylvania? Is that going to count?
Well, it doesn't say, there's no parameters. It just says student, half price. So I have made a fake student ID for a fake college. This is for Stonehaven College. In the background there, I have a building that looks like a university building.
Levi is holding up this fake ID right now. I want to just let everyone know. My God! And you just came up with a fake ID number, even
Yeah, I did a fake ID number.
Although that's probably your ID number for Edinburgh because it starts with 09.
It is. Spoiler alert, it is. I put a fake barcode on the bottom. I said I'm in the art department. This building in the background that looks like a university building is actually the Mercer County, Pennsylvania courthouse. Wanted to represent my roots there, so I put that in the background there. And then I don't know if you can see, but it's Stonehaven College, and I got a little crest there, and in the center of the crest is Stonehenge. I put some Stonehenge bricks in there.
Oh my God!
So if anybody,
you'll have to show that to my brother, and he can tell you if the heraldry is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was actually taken from a Christian high school that's Stonehaven. When I was Googling Stonehaven College, this Christian high school in Indiana popped up. So I took their crest and I took the crucifix out of the center of it and I put Stonehenge in its place.
Oh, the heraldry probably checks out then.
Yeah, but that is I'm going to take these to Los Angeles and I'm going to scam Turner Classic Movies with this fake ID. Mel also has one.
So do you get the discount on like all tickets or just like
all the tickets? So they have two types of screenings. They have like their regular screenings, and then they have like premium screenings. Those tickets are $30, which are $15 with the student price, and then $20 for the regular ticket, which is $10 with the student price.
Wow.
So I'm planning to save a ton of money because they do screenings for 4 days, and for 3 of those days they have screenings from 8 a.m. till midnight. So I can just...
Have they announced any of the lineup yet? Or?
They have some. They haven't announced the whole one. And I'm actually getting worried because I looked in previous years, and in previous years, the lineup has been announced way sooner. Like it would have been November when they would have announced the schedule, and they haven't announced the whole schedule yet. I'll pull up right now. I'll tell you some of the movies. I know we just watched The Thin Man because they're playing another Thin Man.
Oh, nice. That's the second one, right?
That's the second one. So I just watched The Thin Man because I want to go see the second one
Those
on the
movies
screen.
Are absolutely delightful.
I know.
Incredible.
The first one was so much fun.
I haven't seen all of them. I definitely have seen the first one. I'm trying to remember which other ones I've seen, but I mean, I don't know. I watched them on TV when I was a kid.
They're also doing Gigantic, which is a movie I heard described as... What is Gigantic, right?
It's just Giant.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Giant.
Yeah. I've heard
Wyler,
that described.
Right?
I've heard that.
Is it Wyler?
Let's see.
Or George Stevens. It's George Stevens.
Okay. Yeah, it's been described as the Gone with the Wind of Texas, so that's why I'm excited for that.
It's a good movie. I like it.
Drunken Master 2 is
Masterpiece, one of the greatest movies ever made. You are good. Don't bother. You don't need to watch Drunken Master 1, by the way.
Okay, I think I've actually seen Drunken Master 1.
It's not a sequel to that movie, really.
Okay,
so but Drunken Master 2 is one of the greatest action movies ever made. So get excited.
Key Largo is playing. I'm excited to go see that. Oh, there are definitely some new things on here because Polyester's on here.
Oh,
nice. Peggy Sue Got Married
is
new on
Peggy
here.
Sue Got Married is like out of circulation right now. I wonder if I assume Francis is working on a director's cut or something.
It must be. Ooh, The Sting.
Oh, great movie.
Oh, Wizard of Oz. They just added Wizard of Oz. Wow. And the original Star is Born is playing. Slender Thread.
I almost went out to Cleveland to see Wizard of Oz in 35 last week, but just the world made sure that I couldn't. Just lots of bullshit. But but yeah, no, like I realized, this isn't, as cool as the TCM festival, don't get me wrong. But I realized I was like, the best thing about having a driver's license, I know, like, as a 30-year-old man.
This is the best thing about having a driver's license.
It is. I'm like, I can go to Cleveland, which is like a 90-minute drive, so not even really that much of a demanding thing, and go, there's the Cleveland Cinematheque, which actually shows really good shit all the time, and I can go see movies there, and they have, a regular, limited release multiplex, so if I want to see a new movie that's not in Erie. But it's it's just incredible. I haven't been out there in a while, and I regret it because me and friend of the show will never be on the show. Dan, different Dan, not my brother. I say all of that every time I refer to him. But it's we were gonna go back in November to see Kurosawa's Dodeskiden, his first color movie.
Yeah,
and they were showing it in 35. And I don't know why that fell through, but it fell through. I need to be more on top of this. I can drive now. I always just I have such a mindset of I can't do that. I
was just looking at the the announced guest for this the film festival. They're doing a screening of The Flame and the Arrow from 1950, and it's going to be hosted by Craig Barron, visual effects artist, and Ben Burt. So I'm excited
Never heard
for that.
Of that movie. That sounds interesting.
I haven't either. Let's see here. In 1950, The Flame and the Arrow. Burt Lancaster stars as a swashbuckling hero who wages war against a tyrant and does some impressive stunt work in this action romance modeled after early adventure films.
Oh, sounds great.
That'll be great. That's Leonard Maltin is also coming.
Oh, of course, he's there every year.
Yeah. Director Richard Benjamin.
Oh, yeah, he's made a lot of good movies. My Favorite Year, Mermaids, good director.
And then Mink Stoll I'm not familiar Mel knows who that is apparently.
She's in all the John Waters movies.
Yeah.
All of them, but she was in
she's in Polyester.
Oh yeah, that's the movie she's showing, Polyester, and then Lily Tomlin is also going to be there. Last year,
what's she showing?
Let's see, Lily is going. Oh, it doesn't say what she's presenting yet. So
a lot of good movies. So.
Yeah, I agree. Last year, not last year because they didn't have it last year. It was a virtual festival last year that they aired on TV. But in 2019, they had a special honored guest, Ted himself. Ted Turner, he made an appearance.
Oh, that's funny.
I'm hoping Ted shows up again. So, because I know I went
that's
on.
That's hilarious because he has no ownership stake in it anymore.
He's the founder. He's like, he is he's the founder. But Ted.
What a weirdo that guy is.
I know. I know. I went on a rant whenever they switched over the logo on the TCM app they rebranded TCM.
Not a huge fan of the logo.
Yeah, I'm not either. And I went on a rant about how their app wasn't working, but I don't know if I told you I actually messaged the TCM Instagram and I told them how it wasn't working. And I said to them in the message, which I got no response from, it was read, not responded, that I said, if you can, forward this message to Ted. I know Ted would not stand for this. And then when the app started working again, I guess Ted got my message. So
that's funny. You should send a link to this podcast to that Instagram. I'm sure they'd appreciate your scam.
I'm sure they would. Hopefully no one from TCM is listening and they're going to be like waiting at the box.
While I think it's unlikely, not impossible.
Not impossible. I agree.
I think pretty unlikely, but maybe not somebody that literally works there, but I would not be surprised if a couple degrees away. So I'm leaving it in, man. I'm not going to cut it. So
don't cut it.
You'll have to live with the consequences if you get caught. It's what it is.
It'll be so funny if I get caught because I'll have only this show to blame if I get caught because I told this.
We'll have to bring the show will be over by then, but we'll have to bring the feedback to I can just roast you on air. Oh, we could bring the cashier onto the show. All right. Well,
all right.
We got a book to talk about.
Yes, we do.
When we come back, we'll be discussing Star Wars Rebel Force number 5, Trapped. Welcome back to Padawan Library. I'm Tim May, here as always with Levi Peretin.
Bonjour.
And this week, we are in the penultimate book of the Rebel Force series. It is titled Trapped. And we left off last week, we were slightly, it's still very solid, but slightly underwhelmed by Firefight, last week's book.
Mm-hmm.
And, but that book did reintroduce Loon Divinian, or Div, as he prefers to be called these days. And this book goes all in on Loon, on Div, and we get the second return of Ferris coming in this book, and we get a big revelation, or is it a revelation, or maybe it is. We'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it. I will say if a reader has not read the Last of the Jedi series and you have just picked up this series and you've gotten to this book, you might be a little confused by the mythology that is being presented here.
That's why, again, we don't need to get into the authorship question because it seems like an unsolvable riddle, frankly.
Yes, because is there an
update here?
No, there's no update. Okay. But what we initially believed, I'm beginning to question the further we get into this book because I don't know, this feels so dark. This is like the darkest timeline for those characters. I don't like that.
We initially did believe that and we're given good reason to believe that this series is ghost written by Jude Watson.
Why would Pablo lie to us?
I mean, we don't need to get into it. I legitimately don't see why either of the parties that have made any claims in this would lie. And they're not in conflict with each other. It makes no sense.
I know.
The situation makes no sense. But, Alex Wheeler wrote it, whoever that is. Yes. I kind of agree, and for the first 3 books of this series, it was absolutely conceived in midichlorians, in my opinion. And I think the last book I found underwhelming. This one is a better book, more compelling, more interesting stuff happening. But what you said, and we'll get into it, but what you said about the kind of ultimate fate of the characters, the Jude characters from Last of the Jedi, it is a bummer. I don't think it's essential or necessary that all these characters go through either these horrible traumas or die or whatever.
And we find out how they die in this book too.
Yes.
And it's so dark and it's so horrible that when a favorite character of yours, whenever their death is revealed, I set the book down. No, it was so hard. I was like, why? It's so unceremonious and so horrid.
And that's a character that literally dates back to the beginning of the Judeverse, basically. So
the only one. Yeah, the only one who has bridged all.
And she's also series. Not a Jedi, so there's not even the plot thing where she has to die or whatever.
Right. Not only that, but the life that is presented for all of these characters, the fact that they end up a family, and then we spend time in their house, it seems like they had a quaint existence, and then they seem to choose to go on this suicide mission for seemingly no reason, and they all end up dead.
So I just want to talk, we're getting to the end here of not just the show, but this run of books, because whether this is Jude or not, this is part of that run. So I was pretty satisfied with the ending of Last of the Jedi. I thought that actually was a pretty satisfying ending for the Jude run. If that is indeed the end of her involvement in that run, again, we don't need to get into the authorship question. But this, I thought, seemed to me like a good extension until we started dealing with some of these other characters. I was fine, the Ferris that we got, and I'm still cool. I think Ferris is a really interesting character in this. The older Ferris, I think is very well handled. But the other characters from Last of the Jedi, the fact that Astri Odo, or Astri Davinian, I imagine she would renounce that name, likely.
Yeah, that's what I figured too.
But if she was a real person. But regardless, Astri, who is a character that goes back to, book 10 or 11 of Jedi Apprentice?
Something like that, yeah.
The midway point there, and is a major, major character that runs through all 3 of those series. To just not even have her show up in person, but just to reveal that she died passingly in the last book. And now, the way she died, it's just okay, I just Astri, what was interesting about her is that she was invested in what is right, but she was not part of, like, the fight. She never was. She was always kind of along for the ride. That's what made the ending of Last of the Jedi satisfying for her as character, is that she got to make meaningful contributions that she, like, to the struggle, but ultimately, like, it's not hers, like, it's not on her the way it is on Ferris or Obi-Wan earlier or whatever. Like, they're fighting so that people like Astri can have a normal life. So the fact that Ferris was able to secure that for them at the end of Last of the Jedi is the solace that he gets from otherwise having to essentially, like, subsume his entire identity into protecting Leia. You know what I mean? So it's like there's a kind of, like, I find that ending was just very satisfying for those characters, and I don't really think the books have justified Ferris's return. I think Ferris, it's really interesting what they've done with him. But, like, there's no reason for these other characters to even have entered the story, really.
I agree, because, like, this book becomes focused. If Loon is the main character of this book.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So it's like and also too, we started off so strong in this series by focusing on the central characters of the original film, you know, and we had some great Luke and some great Han. We've had great Leia Han stuff going on together.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first, I'm trying to remember what the third one is, but the first two are unimpeachable. They'll be, like, when we make our lists at the end of the show, they will be strong contenders. Like, they're great Star Wars books.
I agree. But then this book just pushes all of that aside to focus on Loon and this horrible fate that he's been given that's just dark, and he is sad, and he is like the boy who lived and the boy who didn't get to become a Jedi, the boy who was their hope.
Right. Well, that's a Harry Potter reference. Like, if you look at, like, Luke or Harry Potter or, like, any lead of that kind of story, okay? Mm-hmm. They obviously often have tragic backstories. But the thing that makes those kinds of stories work, what makes Luke and Harry, you know, to use that example, like, what makes them, like, function as leads of the story is that while the tragic backstory exists, their character is not defined by tragedy. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's about them finding meaning in new things. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, that's the hero's journey if you want to give them that kind of backstory. The problem I have with Loon in this series is that he is entirely defined by tragedy, and there's no, like, there's nothing, like, the fact that he is just totally different, it's just too easy as a character writing thing. Like, it's like, oh, well, you know, when he was young, he was this way, and then the worst possible thing happened to him, and now he's a totally different person. And while I'm not saying that doesn't transform somebody's personality, that's not really how it works in the real world. And it's also, and conveniently, it also does not make for the most compelling, like, you know, adventure storytelling either. You know what I'm saying? Like,
no, it really doesn't.
I also don't think it's more realistic or whatever. Like, I've met lots of people who've gone through truly terrible stuff as young people, and it doesn't just transform them into a totally different person who, like, has nothing remaining. Like, I'm not, like, obviously there are maybe, this is an extreme scenario. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but it's like, but that's not compelling dramatically because we also didn't get to read through that transformation. We just meet him again 2 decades later, and he's a totally different person, and this horrible thing happened to him at some point in the past. And you know what I mean? So it's just a frustrating thing. If you look at, like, Luke Skywalker, his tragic backstory is his father's fall, you know, which isn't even revealed until the end of the second full movie we spent with him. And you know, his aunt and uncle die, of course, you know, are killed, and that's horrible. But, like, that's also, the great thing about adventure storytelling is that there is a kind of like a metaphorical element where you're like, okay, yeah, his aunt and uncle died in this terrible way, but it's like that coincides with when he's leaving home. So it's essentially, it's about death and rebirth and all that stuff. I don't feel any of that with Loon's arc here. You know what I'm saying?
No, because it's like all his family dies, and then he's just like, well, Loon is dead, and now I'm Div, and I have no joy in the world. I have like nothing to live for other than just like the next paycheck, and I'm just like burying all of this loss deep inside.
You know, I'm gonna go. Okay, continue. Sorry, I have a comparison that I actually thought of that maybe makes me like this more. But like,
okay, let me hear it. I want to hear it.
Okay, did you ever watch the show Reboot?
No.
The CGI computer animated show from the 90s. Do you know what it is?
I've heard of it, but I'm not familiar.
Damn. Well, the real heads know. So let me just say, let me say this. So there's Enzo, right? He's a kid in the first 2 seasons. He's like Bob's sidekick, Bob the Guardian. You know, he's Bob's sidekick, and he's like a happy-go-lucky kid. The end of season 2 of Reboot ends with, because Reboot takes place in a computer, and like there's villains, whatever. Like it ends with like this cataclysm that turns Mainframe, the city, into like it basically destroys Mainframe. It gets subsumed by this like dark game, you know, because there's these big purple blocks that come down that are games. I don't need to explain all the world building. The point being that season 3 then jumps forward like over a decade. Enzo now a cool looking Rob Liefeld looking adult. And he's like sullen as hell because like he lost his older sister Dot, Matrix, and he lost them all in this cataclysm. I'm trying to remember the specific cataclysm. It's been 20 plus years, guys. But regardless, I remember loving that 3rd season. I'm not sure how it holds up. You know, I haven't watched the show again in a very long time. I think it might be like 22 years or something. Now that I'm thinking about it, but the point being that I remember that one worked because you're then building him back towards something, and obviously that's what they're trying to do here. But I don't feel like I didn't feel that the catharsis here happened for, and we'll get into it, happened for X7, who may or may not be a character that we know. So it's like the catharsis happened for him, and it did not seem to transfer to Loon or Div at all.
Well, I don't think Loon is a big enough character from the beginning. Loon is always the son of Astrioto, and he was a child, and you learn that he's force sensitive. But like, we don't ever have like, he's just always a kid. He never ascends.
That's why bringing Astri back would have been a better choice.
Exactly, because she's the more important character.
But of course, you don't want to then give Astri like a more tragic backstory, like after she escaped her abusive husband and then like they settled down with a nice guy and raised her son. You don't want that either. The point being, none of those characters had to die. Like that is like to me, you could have checked in on Astri in this series pretty easily by like, well, you know, like Ferris is involved, and Ferris is like, I know one person who can help with whatever task they need to accomplish, and they go visit Astri, and you know what? That'd be a nice scene. I could imagine that being a nice chapter where it's like, oh, well, Astri and her family have lived out on this remote planet, you know, and have led a happy life. Ferris, and she's like, don't bring this shit to me, Ferris, you know, that kind of thing. I can imagine all that. I know that's fan fiction, etc., but guess what? This whole podcast is about fan fiction. None of these, like, I don't see George's name anywhere on here. So it's like, it's all just like, again, we should probably get into like.
Let me hang on though. I have a way to fix this. A way this would have worked better. Okay. Because Bogdavinian, the senator, is not dead, all right?
No,
Loon's father is still alive. Take this Shorish character out, okay? Replace him with Bog, all right? Now, Shorish has the story that he sold out his wife and son because he turns out they were rebels, and he turned them over to the Empire. All right. Replace Shorish with Bog. Replace X7 with Loon. Loon, basically, Bog brainwashes his own son to become an assassin, and then the story, the redemption story of X7 is the fact that X7 is Loon, and then we bring Loon back from the dark side, basically. It's more compelling.
You punched it up. Yeah, absolutely. Like, Alex, you should. I mean, I don't know who the editor of these books was. I don't know if it was Pablo. I don't know who it was, but that's a good pitch.
It's
the same kind of idea. Like, that's the thing. It's like the same.
It's the same idea.
You're not like coloring outside the lines. Like, I actually would have preferred they did this entirely different idea. It's basically the same idea, but just streamlined and functions better as a sequel to Last of the Jedi.
And here's where Ferris comes in. Ferris joins the rebellion, and then this is where you could have introduced Astri, because Astri could have joined the rebellion on her own, and this is where the two of them reconnect.
And that makes sense, because it would be 20 years down the line, and Astri would have raised her kids, and like maybe it's like, you know what? Now I'm like ready to like get back into the thick of it, like. I got my 20 years of like a chill existence, but like, now I want to, give back in some way.
I got to fight again because my ex-husband stole my son and brainwashed my son.
Of course, obviously. So it's like, all right. Well, we should at least we've now talked a lot about what our issues are. I will say this. So we don't need to go chapter by chapter on this.
No, we don't.
Because we've already talked a lot about... So the basic pitch here is that, like... So, Loon, remember, was taken back to Yavin 4, and he gets broken out of the Rebellion's prison by some sort of...
the Empire.
By the Empire. And Luke winds up, through some series of coincidences, winds up basically stowing away on that ship. They take over the ship. They get help from a mysterious TIE fighter pilot who turns out to be Ferris. He's returned yet again, and Ferris has spent the last few months following Darth Vader's movements, figuring out what Vader's up to, and he realized that Vader. He knows that Vader might know who Luke is, but he doesn't say that. And then, so basically, but he's like, he's after the pilot who destroyed the Death Star. Everyone knows that's Luke. That scene with him and in the Rebel war room was cool, and it was nice. Although he and Leia didn't get any actual moment together.
No, they don't.
And where I feel like that's set up in the whatever that was, book 2, where it's like, I really feel like her like resentment of him, like him coming with all this like intel, like I think there should be a scene with her and him where like she's just like, oh, like I was wrong about you or whatever. Something doesn't have to be that. She could react in a different way. That's fine too. But it's like there's just no resolution to that idea. And then like what else? And so basically Ferris has this plan where he's like, this X7 guy that escaped, he's going crazy. He's spiraling. He's spiraling. He opened the book. He's spiraling. The book of Saul. And so so he's like even asking the Suresh for like what was his previous identity, all that stuff, and Suresh is like, oh, I can tell you where to go to look, like basically says, look at the computer records. Ferris now says, okay, well, we've made it look like he is Trevor from Last of the Jedi. Now, this is a long time ago for listeners. Trevor was Ferris's sidekick for much of Last of the Jedi, and who essentially became Astrioto's second adopted son at the end of Last of the Jedi.
Yes.
So thus Loon's brother, basically.
A character that at the beginning we were just, because he's blue-haired, and we're just like, I don't know about this Trevor character. And I remember by the end of that series, I had apologized to Trevor because he paid off. He was a great character.
He was. So, but Trevor is dead. He died in the same attack as Astrid and her husband. So basically, Ferris is like, I've made it so that X7 thinks he's this guy, this Trevor Flume character, and he knows where he lived, so he's going to go looking for him. And like basically, he set it up so that Loon or Div has to sell X7 on this idea that in order to essentially get him so mad at the Empire that they can use him and his assassin abilities to battle Vader, I guess, is the idea.
Yep.
And so then they go to the planet, the whatever the planet's called, where they lived, and so Loon is in their old house. X7 shows up at that house, and he like attacks Loon. They have a brawl, and then Loon convinces him that he's Trevor, and that like they had a close relationship once. And Loon starts to believe that it is Trevor. At first I was like, is he actually Trevor? Because if that had happened, I would be like, then why wasn't that just who he was, like, from the first place? So
right,
but
he's had surgery, so like we don't know. He's had plastic surgery. He has no idea what he looked like, and no one knows. So then
basically lots of stuff happens. There's what was it? Vader is coming to the planet. Suresh is on the planet.
Yeah, and Div he wants one thing out of this. The mission that his family died on was they were trying to storm this like munitions factory. All right. And then turns out they got betrayed. Somebody let the Empire know. They all get taken down, and then they blow up the munitions factory anyway. The Empire does. And Loon, his family said, no, you can't come with us. Go stand on the hill and watch. So Loon watches this whole thing. He watches his whole family die, and then they blow up the factory for no reason. Then they build a new munitions warehouse on top of that one. So Div, he's like, well, if I'm going to do this, you rebels have to destroy that munitions factory. And then this ends up basically becoming him having to go through this whole thing again, because then X7, he betrays them, and the rebels, include Luke, who's supposed to go into the factory and set the charges. X7, who is still spiraling, who you think might be a good guy, actually let the Empire know of an ambush coming outside the factory, but it was all actually a diversion for X7 to finally complete his mission and kill Luke Skywalker.
But then he ultimately just gets himself alone with Loon.
Mm-hmm.
And shoots Loon to be like, I need to subsume these feelings, these dreaded feelings I'm having towards this man. But he shoots Loon in the shoulder, so he doesn't actually kill him. He runs off, and then
Ferris finds Loon.
Ferris and Loon then they basically. I'm trying to remember what happens. I read this only like 8 hours ago.
So after that, the two of them go to the factory where X7 is just about to shoot Luke. But he's high up on a catwalk, and there's all this machinery going on, so Luke can't hear what's going on above him. And Ferris and Loon fight X7, and this results in Ferris cutting off X7's arm, and then also eventually stabbing him in the chest and killing him. And then there's this whole scene where X7 is dying, and he's begging for Loon or Div to come by him, keeps calling him his brother. He's basically totally bought this idea that he is Trevor, and he makes like Div say goodbye to him. Which
basically lets him die, I believe in you. And I actually kind of like this bit where it's like they let X7 die, believing he was Trevor, because even if he wasn't Trevor, he was somebody else, and he deserves to like die. You know. So
I want to say this is some complex shit that they're dealing with.
Oh yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, this is and it's dark too. It's like it might be one of the darkest books we've read in terms of just like emotional like things that it's dealing with here. It's different. It's really different than what we've read before, and it really stands out in this series as being different too. So continue.
I mean, I don't really have a problem with that. That stuff's all really interesting to me. Like the questions of identity and kind of past selves and stuff like that. Obviously, very literalized here, where he's like literally a different person, basically. But I do think there's like, and then basically what happens is that's done. They complete the whatever it's called, the factory job. Suresh is able to escape. Suresh it gets warned that Vader is on his way to punish him, basically, and he's able to escape through some back way. And Vader shows up. He's like, "Oh, Suresh isn't here." He's like, "But you know who I sense, though? I sense the presence of Ferris, basically." So he's like, "Watch out, Ferris." Is how the book ends.
Yep.
So I will say we didn't talk much about Luke or Han or Leia, who are the ostensible leads of this series, and certainly were absolutely the leads of the series for the first few books. And I think, especially because this is essentially like, let's work with all these Last the Jedi characters, and I only find one of their character arcs satisfying in relationship to that series, this was a bummer to me. Like, I don't think it's a bad book. It's like a more compelling... It's a more compelling story than Firefight was, which was just kind of a beastie battle for much of it. Like, But I do think, like, I'm nervous going into the finale here. And obviously, by the way, the destruction of the factory also led to this big uprising that supposedly, I assume, will be the uprising referred to of the title of Book 6 on that planet. So...
Div does give Luke a lightsaber lesson because, like,
that was a nice moment.
That was a nice moment. So Luke learned some old Jedi techniques in terms of fighting stances. Also, too, let's talk about Jason Alexander on the back of this book, who also shows up on the back of the next book.
He looks close. He looks more Jason Alexander-esque in the next one.
I agree. However, so Ferris, when we first see him, is wearing an Imperial uniform, okay, and then he changes out of it, and it's said that he gets the clothes from General Dodonna. So this outfit he's wearing on the back of this book, I can only assume is from Dodonna's wardrobe.
Yeah.
So that made me chuckle a little bit.
I will say, the other, I'm looking at Loon here, Div. Doesn't he look like, do you remember VH1 talking head legend Hal Sparks?
The name sounds familiar. I'm going to look him up. Because I was thinking, like, this guy looks like somebody.
Like, I think that's who I think.
Oh, that definitely looks like him. Like, 100%.
He's in the elevator scene in Spider-Man 2.
Yep.
And he was on I Love the 80s, I Love the 90s,
yep,
I
that's
Love
where
the
I know
Millennium.
him from. Yeah, he definitely looks like that. I was thinking maybe a little Ben Stiller-ish too, but yeah, he definitely looks more like that. Also, he has a lightsaber in both of these images on this book and the next book, which apparently Loon does not have a lightsaber in the books. But the pose on the back of this book makes it seem like a comedy, in my opinion. Like, the look on Div's face is so comedic.
It looks like... I sent you the poster for that Jay Leno, Pat Morita buddy cop movie. Collision Course. It just looks like a buddy cop comedy.
It really does.
Poster. It's like this guy over here, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Shouts to Randy Martinez for these illustrations.
I love him. And
I find, because last week we discussed the wardrobe of Luke on the back cover. On this cover, I do want to discuss the wardrobe of Leia on the front cover. I find her outfit a little clunky. She's wearing white on white, including like a white sweater vest over her white sweater.
Yeah, she has like a sleeveless hoodie over her sweater.
Yeah.
Like, like I feel like she has a hood in the back there, right? Yeah. Yeah. I don't mind it. It's okay, but looks like she's like at the gym. It looks like she's taking Joan of Arc's aerobics class from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Yeah, or she just walked out of a fencing class. It's very a
very
fencing outfit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's the book.
Well,
a very controversial book.
Controversial episode.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I don't know. So I don't even know what to give this, frankly, because I don't think it's terrible. But I think I'm gonna have to stick around 7 or 8. I'm gonna say 7. 7.
Wow. Okay. I was conflicted about this one too because I don't think it's a bad book. I don't think it's poorly written. I think it's trying to do. It's got some high concept ideas, but the issue is I'm just not satisfied with the characters. I'm not satisfied with the turn the series has taken, and it's gotten me a little worried. So I was gonna go 9 for mine. It's still high, but it's not a favorite of mine by any means. So
yeah, and the first 3 were just out the gate. Also strong.
And we had such high hopes.
I'm nervous about 6 here. So
I am very nervous about 6.
And it's the shortest book in the series. It looks like. I don't know. So all right. So.
And X7, he gets mentioned on the back cover of this one.
He's mentioned on the back cover of all of them.
Yep. This is completely unrelated, but I wanted to shout out to Aaron, who apparently was the former owner of my book. His name is written on the cover page here. And I also have written too, we didn't do a shout out last week, to Dave Wolverton, the author of Jedi Apprentice #1, who unfortunately passed away.
Yeah.
So
he's the first book we ever covered was written by him, and he also wrote the Courtship of Princess Leia.
He is technically the father of this universe that we are currently reading.
He did create Brooke Chun.
He did create Brooke Chun.
Created Brooke Chun.
Mm-hmm. He certainly did.
Shout out to Dave, wherever you are. So. Next week,
Wizard of Storytelling.
He is the wizard. You know what? I've given him that. He deserves that right now. The Wizard of Storytelling. He's up there in the clouds.
We should actually, when we talk about Jedi Prince #6, your brother, I assume, has read The Courtship of Princess Leia, and I know we have a wedding at the end of Book 6 of Jedi Prince, so we can talk a little bit more about Dave there. So.
Yeah, compare and contrast. So. This next book is Uprising, the final book in the Rebel Force series by Alex Wheeler, and we'll be talking about that next week. I don't think we have any plans as far as other stuff. I feel like we're at the end of the show. We don't need to.
Yeah, we don't need to.
We'll talk about something. We'll figure it out. Let's do a Book of Boba Fett catch up.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's talk Book of Boba Fett.
We'll talk about that, and then the following week will be the final episode of Book of Boba Fett. So, are you caught up on Book of Boba Fett right now?
I am not, but I'll be caught up.
Okay, all right.
I watch it with my brother, so I got to line the schedules up.
Right, I'll say this right now: the latest episode is the best episode.
Okay, I'm excited. I will be watching it soon. So, we'll do a little Book of Boba Fett catch up next week. I'll try to be caught up through next week's episode by the time we record.
The penultimate episode.
So, yeah, great. And then, so this is, 3 episodes left.
I know. It's
crazy.
Bittersweet.
It is. But, next week we're going to talk a little book. We're going to open that book, and we're going to open this book, Uprising. But until then.
Until the books are due back.
Right. The library is closed.
Padawan Library is hosted and produced by Tim May and Levi Peretic. It is edited by Tim May. Our theme song is by The Astral Project. Our artwork is by Freddie Funbuns. Padawan Library is copyright
2022.
Tim May and Levi Peretic. All rights reserved.